Welcome to They Live by Film, a platform dedicated to bringing you film discussion and interviews from around the world. I am Adam Lundy, and I am joined by my co-hosts Chris Haskell and Zach Bryant.
Hello.
Hey,
Hello,
it's been a
guys.
while.
Yeah,
Adam,
it's
you
been.
sound like you have an extra pep in your step.
Yeah, it's the love of a good woman will do that to you. No, as listeners know, before I went away, I went off to get married and had my honeymoon and stuff. So it's actually been, by the time this episode comes out, it's been like a month since we last had an episode like this. So obviously appreciate the wait if you've been waiting for us to talk about these Blatty movies. We appreciate you, and we appreciate Chris and Zach for doing their interviews that they've done over the last few weeks. They've been really good. And thanks obviously to the guests as well who've come on. If you happen to be listening, thanks for giving us some time. We appreciate you as well. Obviously everybody knew my news. You guys have any news or anything you want to talk about before we talk about the actual movies?
I just want to say, Zach, congratulations on completing your first solo interview.
Oh, thank you.
No, that's a lie. You lie. This is Zach's second solo interview.
Oh, the filmmaker.
The filmmaker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well,
I
figured you meant on this one, but yeah, I talked to the Exigency director.
Oh yeah,
podcast.
I forgot that wasn't our podcast.
Yeah,
wait, you had me confused.
I just assumed it was our podcast. I'm sorry.
Actually, if I couldn't get the interview, I was like, could I just upload that one?
You definitely could. I wouldn't have noticed.
That was a good interview too. That's right. I forgot you did that on the other one. But do you know why Crit has Vin Diesel as his picture?
Dude just loves Vin Diesel.
Why would he not? Yeah. Give me a reason why he wouldn't.
Okay. All right. Good. We still need to have that debate where he tries to convince me that Vertigo is good. We got to get that scheduled.
I mean, it's just going to be like three people flabbergasted about how you don't love Vertigo.
I'm ready. I'll find somebody from the Vinegar Syndrome Discord to join me. There's like one or two people that were like, "Thank you," when I put my hot take in.
We should just hold a debate one day. We just gather up a team of let's go 3v3 debate on Vertigo. I think that might be an idea for a future episode.
You think there's three people who don't love Vertigo? You think that exists?
Well, Chris, and then apparently two other people in a Vinegar Syndrome Discord. So there you go.
They're the same person on two different avatars.
Oh, maybe they're all just Chris's alts. They're just
it's just me in different accents.
Yeah, that's fair. You guys seen anything the last few weeks? Do you want to give a shout out to, or bought anything? We all buy stuff, I suppose. Anything like that?
Well, the Criterion sale for Barnes and Noble was this month, and I'm officially done. I actually got I think 8 titles. Nice. I wish I could remember them all. That's definitely the most I've ever done for one sale. But I was able to get this last 2 that I got was After Hours. I couldn't get it the first time because I hadn't released yet, and I got Thelma and Louise. But before that, I got Mishima. Is that how you say that? I said that right?
Mm-hmm,
Mishima?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mishima is what I would say, but I think Mishima is better.
Okay. It's one of those things. It's kind of like we talk about Yakuza. Yakuza sounds more natural to me, but I know that's wrong.
I like the way Chris says it. Say it, Chris.
Yakuza?
No, you don't say it like that though. You say Yakuza. You say
Yakuza.
Yakuza.
Well,
at least on the video you did for Yakuza Graveyard, which if you are a listener and you don't know, we have a YouTube account. We do have a YouTube account. Links in the description. Chris just put a video up talking about Yakuza Graveyard, Radiant's film release. So go check it out. But yeah, you say Yakuza, which I think is the correct way of pronouncing it. So.
Okay. Yeah, it's just I know it's not Yakuza. I know that one's wrong, even though that one feels the most natural to me as a Westerner. It sounds like that sounds right. But I got that. I got Comfort of a Stranger. I just figured I'd get Paul Schrader, Raging Bull, Kiss Me Deadly, and The Manchurian Candidate. So it was a pretty good sale, honestly. There was a lot of good stuff I'd kind of gotten behind on. And as far as watches go, I just want to shout out the Napoleon trailer came out for Ridley Scott's new film that he's putting out. I guess it's around Thanksgiving. So me and my girlfriend decided, we're going to go down and watch all of Ridley Scott's historical epics. And
poor bastard.
I've gotten through the good ones. We watched The Gladiator, which Gladiator's awesome. Robin Hood, which I actually like. I don't love it. She loves it. It's like one of her favorite movies. I like it all right. But then we watched Kingdom of Heaven. We watched the director's cut. The movie's awesome.
I have heard the director's cut is really good.
It's
I need to get my hands on it.
Yeah, like it's 40. It's like one of the examples I'll use that is so different is there's a part where Orlando Bloom's character, because the biggest criticism, especially of like the theatrical cut, is it feels very much like white man comes to save Middle Eastern country sort of thing. And it's really down to the edit why it seems that way. Like there's a scene where he is going to bed with a woman and they put this Oriental music over it. And you're like, oh, this seems very like exoticism type of thing, where that's not even close to present in the director's cut. Like it's plays very differently, and it was just little things like that that I think made the movie fail. And plus, it was, especially when you look at the director's cut, it's a very pro Middle Eastern film, especially in a time that's so close after like 9/11. And it's actually kind of impressive. I was like, I think I could see why the producers was like, no, you cannot put this edit out, because the director's cut is very positive towards its Middle Eastern depictions. And this was in 2005. So highly recommend if you can't watch it.
Maybe that's why it was edited in the first place.
Yeah, I think that had a lot to do with it, to be honest. But yeah, I really loved it. It was 3 hours and 9 minutes. So I know it's already like, oh, that's long, but it's worth it.
Chris, anything from you?
Yeah, so much. There's
that was a dumb question.
I've been watching. I've been going through a little bit of waves recently, to be honest, because work has been very, very busy. So like there'll be like 2 days in a row where I don't watch a movie and I start to break out in hives. So then I'll try to compensate and watch like 2 movies in a night or something. But I think I went from 2010 through 2019 where I barely watched any movies, maybe like 10 a year, maybe, to where now I have this like itch, this constant itch if I'm not watching something at night. But probably the ones I want to call out, there's the Vinegar Syndrome has a line called Archive, and they're at to about 35 titles, and essentially it's 80s action movies. There's a little bit of variety in that, but just if you're gonna group the bunch up, it's like 80s and early 90s action movies. Most of them have been from the US, but they put out a Ringo Lam movie called Undeclared War. And I just love Ringo Lam. The guy's he just makes these like over the top. It's the kind of movie where when a guy gets shot or somebody gets shot, the packet of blood that they have on them for like the effects, the blood squirts like 2 stories up. So you get this like spray of blood every time somebody gets shot. So it's almost like a painting. It's just like just this mess. And it has to do with European tension and political undertones, whatever, but it's just like crazy action the whole way through. Then I happened to see, I'm going through the 88 films, the ones they released in the US. So I'm all the way up to the most recent one, which is the In the Line of Duty box set, 4 movies. The first one that was made was called Yes, Madam, although it was the second one released in the US, so it's a bit confusing because it's called In the Line of Duty 2. But it was made first, and it was Michelle Yeoh and Cynthia Rothrock. And just by way of, if I'm going to sell it in a sentence, the very first Captain America, like one of the coolest parts of the movie for me was every time he punched or kicked, the person like flew like 100 feet, and they did like just the fighting design was excellent in that movie, like the hand-to-hand combat, right? It was like this huge impact when Captain America hit, and they did it here. So every time Michelle Yeoh kicks somebody, they just go flying. She's got like this. It's not that she has a superpower, but it's just that style, right? And just amazing choreography, nonstop, like wall-to-wall action. Awesome movie. can't wait to get into the other three for that. And then the last one I'll shout out from a watch-wise. For anybody that wants to see like I don't even know exactly how to describe this. It's like if Guillermo del Toro got together with Michelle Haneke and made like a dark fantasy where like the worst parts of funny games were thrown into Groundhog Day and just repeated for 90 minutes. um it's 90 minutes of this like nightmare for this couple that's camping, trying to mourn the loss of their daughter. And the scene where this like it's like a children's story, like a children's like sometimes children's toys come with like artwork on them. So there's like a dog and a guy who's leading the pack and like a giant guy and then a woman who's kind of in makeup, and it's on like a music box. And so the whole thing is based around this cast of characters coming up and just murdering and assaulting this couple. It's so dark, but it's very, very well made and super interesting. It's called Coco di Cocoda. So Adam, I'm going to not recommend it for you.
Perfect.
Not that there's direct sexual assault, but it's certainly, let's say, terror, right? Like terror and threat of sexual assault, and it's just on repeat for 90 minutes.
Fun.
So I'm gonna give, but I'm watching it because we're interviewing the guy from Dark Star Pictures in 2 days. So I want to watch some of these Dark Star Pictures. So that one, the first one was The Last Matinee, which Zach, I believe you've seen already, right?
Yes.
The one where it's like a slasher that only takes place in a theater.
Yes. Yes.
Like light on plot, super awesome on gore.
That I would say that that sums it up pretty well.
Yeah, I love Last Matinee, and I actually really liked Coco di Cocoda as well. And then the next one up, I'm gonna watch hopefully tonight. It's called Mother Smuckers. I haven't seen it yet, but it seems like they're a fan of sort of like dark humor and really dark kind of fantasy. So I'm interested to see if Mother Smuckers fits that as well. And then extremely quickly, because I don't want to go on for too long, I get the way that my job works, I get 2 to 3 commission payouts per year based off of how my sales were from the previous quarter. It's rare that I close deals every quarter, but if in theory I could get 4 commissions a year, but usually it winds up being 2 to 3. And I got my first one from the first quarter, and it was a pretty good quarter. And so I had this like influx of cash that hit right when the Criterion sale started and the Arrow summer sale started. So I went somewhat light on Criterion because you have 4 of these Criterion sales a year, right? So I'll wait for my next commission for that. But for Arrow, I got Rihei Kitamura's Verses, which is this kind of not quite multiverse, but certainly sci-fi style, bloody samurai action, really cool movie. Wild Things, which I think I've only ever seen 5 minutes of that, if y'all know what I mean.
You
I'd
know
be
what you
curious
mean.
I'd be curious to see the rest of that movie. I've heard it's pretty good. As a young teen, I had no interest in the movie outside of the most important 5 minutes. Um, I got Fulci's Demonia, and A Fugitive from the Past came in, which is another Japanese film, and I got 2 of their Fassbinder sets, Volume 1 and 2. I don't know if they have a 3, but I got 2 of their
Pretty sure they do
Fassbinder.
have a third one.
Yeah, I thought so as well.
Probably might not have been the sales too new. I know a lot of these companies don't put stuff in that came out in the last 6 months on sale or something. I know that's how
Okay,
an indicator do anyway, so maybe Arrow is the same.
yeah, that would make sense. And then I have Naked Lunch coming. Oh, I'm sorry. I know what it was. The Fassbender set was it was on sale actually. The volume 3 was on sale, but it shipped separately because I think it doesn't come out technically until the end of the month. Um, and then Hiroku the Goblin, and then the new Jalo Essentials, the blue one. So I got and the Prince of Thieves edition they did. So I'll rewatch that. I remember really liking Prince of Thieves as a kid. I have no idea if it still holds up, but I used to watch that movie a lot. So yeah, that was my Arrow haul.
What was your Criterion haul?
My Criterion haul, oh man, it's not on a list anywhere. But I can tell you I got let's see, I'm trying to remember now because that was 2 weeks ago. I went right on the first. I'm a little bit lucky. The store that we're is by my house, the Barnes and Noble that's by my house, is one of the ones that stacked every title or claimed they were going to. Have you heard about this, Adam? They're gonna, in a weird way, Criterion is saving physical media at Barnes and Noble.
No, what's the deal?
Essentially, there's certain stores where, most of the Barnes and Nobles have been decimated, right? It'll be like on an end cap and it'll be like 20 titles. And it's like, here's our Criterion sale. But they're testing something out this year in a handful of stores where they're stocking every title that's in print.
Okay,
And
that's very
so,
cool.
yeah, so the store that I live close to was one of these ones. Zach, have you gone into a Barnes and Noble yet?
I only buy in store. I don't buy online for Barnes and Noble.
So they had a decent selection the one you went to?
The one I've went to for years, and it's
Mhm.
crazy because it's not attached, but it's right next to this mall that has nothing left in it. But
Mhm.
the Barnes and Noble Criterion section has always been good there. Like it's very few titles I can't find that I'm
That's great.
interested in.
That's
Yeah.
great. So I got Heaven Can Wait. I got Hoop Dreams. I got Close Your Ears, Adam. I got Jules and Jim.
Ugh.
I got L'Eclisse.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
and My Own Private Idaho, and then one more. I got Tout va bien. Tout va bien.
Yeah. Got it right.
Yeah, and then yes, and then the last thing was one of their newer titles, which was 5 films by Steve McQueen. The box set's called Small Axe.
All right. Yeah. The British films.
Yeah, so that was my Criterion, huh?
That's a nice little haul.
Yeah. I just finished, I should mention, if anybody's on Reddit and wants to see the ravings of 2 madmen instead of one, I found a Redditor named Tim who watches at least 1,000 movies a year, if not more. Every night he watches 2 to 3 movies, and he's been doing that for 10 years or something. The guy has just seen a crazy amount of movies. And he asked if he would ever want to try writing with me on like one of these director runs that I do. I was like, sure, why not? And it's been really fun. So there's a series of Krzysztof Kieślowski movies that I've been going through. And we're done pretty much. I have to post about Red, which I'll do here in the next day or two. Red is magnificent, but to no one's surprise. But then after that, there's like 3 short films that came out after Red that were made before, but didn't get released till later because of bad governments, restrictive governments. But Red is technically the last thing he did. I think Kieslowski died, what, like 2 years after Red or something?
Yeah, it was something like
So
that. He said he was going to retire, and then he died.
and then he gave the most dramatic retirement. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a pity because I feel like we don't have to get into a Kieslowski segment here, but it's just the 3 color trilogies is like he was really hitting his stride in like every way. I mean, the Decalogue's amazing, but I would think somewhat limited visually, like it's more story driven, right? Beautiful cinematography, but I feel like in the 3 colors trilogy, he kind of took that even to the next level and just played with light and color in like really beautiful ways. and I think the stories are a little bit. Well, no, the Decalogue is like one of my favorite things of all time, so not better. But I just think it would have been super interesting to see what he had done if he had continued, because I feel like he was hitting his stride in so many ways. Right around the time of what came out right before the Decalogue? It was Small Chance or something like that, and then the Decalogue, and then the Three Colors. And it was just like, oh, I want more from him. So anyways, it's a pity that he stopped making movies, but it's been a really fun run. And then Michelle Haneke is going to be my next one. So I've been slowly collecting all of his movies. I think I'm complete now. And so we'll see how that goes, as I think that's going to start in August. Yeah.
So we expect you to be extremely depressed throughout August, September, October.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, well, anyways, yes, exactly. I want to see how they, I'm excited to revisit. Like, I hated the American Funny Games when it came out, just because like I was offended by its existence. But I'd be curious to watch it again and see if maybe I've loosened up on it.
I think the only Haneke film I've ever seen is Cache, whatever.
Oh, Caches. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I
That
think that's the only one
there
I've seen. Pretty
that
good.
one scene, like the one little like burst of violence in that movie.
Yeah,
Whew,
crazy.
it hits.
Yeah, it's a good film. Really, really good.
All right.
My segment is very small because obviously I've been away. Because we stand Radiance films here, I'll once again talk about Radiance films. I got the Cosa Nostra box set, the one that was like announced when Radiance Films like first came into existence. This was announced, so it was on pre-order. Finally arrived for me. I know not everybody's gotten there. Sorry, Chris. So that's beautiful. Franco Nero is a cool actor, so looking forward to seeing him in some non-westerns. I guess I don't think I've ever seen him not play in a western. So the three films here all have great names: The Day of the Owl, The Case is Closed, Forget It, and How to Kill a Judge. I love The Case is Closed, Forget It. I love that how unnecessary the forget it part is.
Yeah.
I didn't actually know too much about the films. I just knew they were mafia films or that they involved the mafia in some way. I didn't realize that Lee J. Cobb is in The Day of the Owl, so that'll be interesting to see him play
Cool.
a mafia boss. I assume he's dubbed. So
Yeah.
I'll be interested to dive into these. In terms of films that I've watched, I saw the new Mission Impossible movie, and because it's a Mission Impossible movie made by Chris McQuarrie, it's awesome. Really, really good. It starts off kind of chaotic. I was kind of thrown for like the first 20 minutes because it does start a bit all over the place, but once like the main plot kicks in, it's all just like really good. It's like typical sort of modern Mission Impossible. It's fun, it's thrilling, stunts and the action are great. Haley Atwell's a really good addition to the cast this time out. I know we just talked about the first Captain America a few minutes ago. So yeah, Haley Atwell's really good in it. The cast in general just really good. So I enjoyed that. That was Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. I think Part 2 is coming out next summer. It was all delayed because of COVID. But I look forward to seeing how they kind of wrap up the plot that they've started in this film. I always have time for Mission Impossible movies. I was going to try and get to Indiana Jones. I probably won't get a chance to get to it before it comes out of theaters now, so I'll probably have to wait.
It's fine.
I'm really not too fussy about seeing like an octogenarian Harrison Ford running around. I know that they do de-age him for certain segments of it, but I'm really not too fussy about it. So I'll probably just wait till it comes out on streaming. The next time I'll be in a theater will be for the most important cinematic event of the year, which is for Barbieheimer.
Yes.
So yeah, we'll maybe tease that we might have something coming up for Barbieheimer. We'll just leave that out there for now. But I suppose we might as well talk about the movies that we came here to talk about.
Actually, before we get started, since you talked about Mission Impossible, I just found this out today, and I wanted to get your thoughts as a Hitchcock lover and you like Mission Impossible. Okay. Is Mission Impossible 2 really just a remake of Notorious? I found that out today, and it like blew my mind because I haven't seen that.
That's a good way of looking at it. Mission Impossible 2 sucks so bad. It's really terrible. Even as someone who is a Mission Impossible fan, and that surprises a lot of people when I tell them how big of a Mission Impossible fan I am. I love those movies. Mission Impossible sucks real bad. I'm also not a big Notorious guy, so I'm actually, funnily enough, even though I'm a massive Hitchcock fan, I'm actually a Mission Impossible fan. I'm not the best person to ask about that because I've only seen Notorious once. I didn't really care that much about it. I didn't really see the hype, and it's been a few years since I've put myself through watching Mission Impossible 2. But now I am curious, and I might have to double feature them at some point.
Well, the reason it even came up was like I was talking to someone who was talking about Disturbia as like, the Rear Window remake. And I was like,
Yeah.
what? He's like, it's the best Hitchcock remake. And I'm like, you can see what else Hitchcock's made. And that came up into Hitchcock remakes. I'm like, what? Okay. It actually kind of made me curious to watch it because I've still only seen the first Mission Impossible.
Like the way, like the first Mission Impossible is charming. I have a lot of time for the first Mission Impossible movie, but you could easily skip 1, 2, and 3 and just start with Ghost Protocol. Ghost Protocol is kind of like a soft reboot.
But I feel so bad doing it. Like I thought about it because I've heard that before. And I'm like, I might as well watch 2 and 3.
And to be fair, like 3 is pretty good. Like it's not as good as the last few, but 3 is like it's definitely better than 2. Like 2 is like the worst bottom of the barrel shit. 2 is really bad. 3 is actually pretty good. Philip Seymour Hoffman only is in it for a very short time. But like he's Philip Seymour Hoffman, so like he just steals the whole movie, even though he's only in it for like 15 minutes. But you could theoretically just watch from Ghost Protocol onwards. You're not going to really lose anything once you know that Ethan Hunt is Ethan Hunt. He's a spy. He works for the Impossible Missions Force. And that's pretty much all you need to know. There's no sort of further continuity that you need to remember. But I think, you know what, like for shits and giggles, like just watch 2. 3 is much better, and then it just from Ghost Protocol onwards, it's all chef's kiss. It's all amazing from Ghost Protocol on.
Because I mean, I'm sure it'll be in theaters for a while because it's Tom Cruise. So, I assume it'll have long legs at the box office and it'll be there.
Yeah.
I thought about like watching the series as quickly as I can to go see it in theaters, but we'll see if that happens.
Yeah, like it only came out this week, right? I saw it on
Yeah.
Monday, and I'm pretty sure it hadn't even released everywhere until like this weekend. So
Yeah.
I'll be surprised if it's not still there in 2 weeks.
There's only 5 or 6 movies in the franchise before this, right? I think you could do
1,
that
2,
in
3. This is 7.
This is 7, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, you could do that in a day, Zach, if you planned your day right.
Honestly, like Mission Impossible, especially like the newer ones, those are definitely those films that like once I watch one, I'll just like watch them all. Especially like between Rogue Nation and Fallout, they're kind of connected. They're not like in the same way it's like a part 1, part 2 kind of a deal, but a lot of plot carries over into Fallout from Rogue Nation. So you could those would definitely be a good ones to like double feature, like watch them back to back. None of the rest of them you kind of have to, but the day you watch Rogue Nation, I would recommend watching Fallout like immediately afterwards.
Fallout is funny enough the one I want to watch just because I love Henry Cavill.
It's so good. And Henry Cavill's so good.
Yeah,
I
like every
appreciate
time I saw the trailer, I was like, I want to watch Mission Impossible now, just so I can get to Cavill.
Yeah, and like the reason why I love Fallout so much is that it's the reason that Henry Cavill has the stupid CGI face in Justice League. Because he was contractually obligated to not shave his mustache. So.
Oh man, I love it.
There we go. So, but yeah, new Mission Impossible movie is good. I liked it. It starts off very, very messy, but once the main plot kicks in, it gets quite good, and the cast is all good. So, no complaints here as a Mission Impossible fan.
Well, I guess before people think this is a Mission Impossible podcast, I guess
it should be.
So yeah, we're just slowly transitioning our way there, so people won't even notice when it happens. But I guess we'll talk about William Peter Blatty, since this was my choices for this week. We'll be talking about the only 2 movies he directed, which was The Ninth Configuration, which he did in 1980, and Exorcist 3, or Exorcist, or actually just called Legion, depending on which cut you watch, which came out in 1990. Before we got started, I actually did want to go over a little bit about Blatty and of course, for anyone unaware, Blatty also wrote the novel The Exorcist. He is the creator of it, and he wrote the screenplay, won an Oscar for the screenplay. But I did want to go over Blatty because he's just a super interesting guy anyway, because he did so little, but he made such like a huge impact when it comes to horror, and film in general. And I think I teased last time when I picked these movies that um, that Groucho Marx is the reason we have Exorcist, and I did want to kind of go over that because I felt like if I don't, I'd be lying. So Blatty got his money initially from a TV show in '61 called "You Bet Your Life," which was hosted by Groucho Marx, where he won $10,000. But the reason that episode became at least a little famous was because he dressed up as a Middle Eastern prince and wanted to see if Groucho Marx could figure out that he wasn't actually a Middle Eastern prince, because he had done I think it's a nonfiction book where he goes around dressed as this and, kind of plays a prank with it, which he wrote a book called Which Way to Mecca, Jack. And he essentially got into doing this because his parents were Lebanese. Well, at least his mother was Lebanese. So he grew up in New York, but he was always very familiar with Middle Eastern culture, which is why you'll see a lot of that, especially in Exorcist. Like a lot of Middle Eastern stuff is in Exorcist. Mm-hmm. And so with the money he won from You Bet Your Life, which was the top prize, which was $10,000, which is worth like $85,000 or so today, he ended up being able to take off and actually start writing full time, which is why he then wrote like Twinkle Twinkle Killer Kane, which will turn into Ninth Configuration. And then he wrote The Exorcist and things like that. And pretty much Groucho Marx is the whole reason we have The Exorcist. So we can thank him for that.
Awesome.
But we'll start with the first one he directed, which is the Ninth Configuration. And because I'm going to blame on not being here for so long, I don't have the synopsis up. So I'm going to pull that up real quick.
I wonder if Groucho had any idea of like the kind of novels that he wrote.
There at the point he came in, he had only written the one novel, which was the one about him dressing up like a Middle Eastern prince. Okay. And if you actually, the episode's still available. I actually rewatched it before this one, so I make sure I could remember what all happened. And I know one of the things that Groucho especially liked is he was very clever. Like when he announces, this is all an act. He's like, "So you're like a wolf in sheep's clothes," like more like a wolf in sheep's clothing. And he thought that was pretty funny. So he was a very clever guy.
Nice.
So for the first one, we're going to talk about the Ninth Configuration. Colonel Vincent Kane is a military psychiatrist who takes charge of an army mental hospital situated in a secluded castle. Amongst Kane's many eccentric patients is Captain Billy Cutshaw, a troubled astronaut in the midst of an existential crisis. Although Kane's own grasp of his sanity is questionable, he manages to engage Cutshaw in a series of thoughtful conversations about science and faith that deeply affected the lives of both men. And I'm sure for many, because I think I mentioned this is the actual Exorcist 2, they might be curious how this is an Exorcist sequel. It's a very minor one. One of the characters was the astronaut that Reagan told that he was going to die up there in space, and this is what causes his mental collapse. So I know it's fresh for you, Chris. So what did you think of the Ninth Configuration?
Wait, okay, so I want to tell you, but I still don't understand the Exorcist connection. What is it like?
I can't. I think it might be in the director's cut. I don't think it's in the theatrical, but it's also in the book where Reagan, while she's possessed, tells an astronaut who's about to go into space that he's going to die up there. And he is the character who is played by what is his name? He's the one who plays Herschel in The Walking Dead. Scott Wilson.
Yeah, Scott Wilson. Yeah.
So he's the astronaut that Reagan tells that to, and that's why he has a mental breakdown.
Oh, and so this is his story in a way, like, or this is like, so
this is the aftermath of that.
Oh my gosh, that's a deep cut. Because this movie, tone wise and everything, is like not an Exorcist movie.
And and this is of course after Exorcist 2, which I'm sure you'll talk about here in a minute because you just recently watched that too. But it's awful, and Blatty went to the theater with his son and made fun of it, so they ended up making this later.
That's awesome. So they shoot zombies, don't they? has this as the 2,152nd best horror movie.
Okay.
And They Shoot Pictures has this as the 3,815th best movie. For me, this is a movie that just got more awesome as it went along. Like, it starts off maybe in the way that all the best movies do, where it just kind of throws you into this world, and then it takes a little bit of time to catch up. You know, like they it starts off with this weird, like, folksy kind of, like a James. Oh man, I can't think of any folk singers right now. Not all I can think of is James Cameron. Who's the? Well, anyways,
James Taylor, is it?
Taylor. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
knew exactly what you're talking about. That song, that kind of song. Yeah.
Yeah. It starts off with that kind of 60s style of, like, folky song and a weird montage. I was like, what the hell am I watching? I even messaged Zach and I was like, am I in the right movie? And then, the military, it's like this weird castle, and before they even explain what's going on, these people come out that are sort of standing at attention and making wisecracks, and you're like, okay, what am I about to watch? And then it starts telling a story about how the castle got there, right? And then they kind of get into, like, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest style movie a little bit, but based in this kind of, like, really gothic castle. So I was like, what? Okay, I'm just gonna roll with this and just see what's going on. And it and then as it went on, it's almost like, because he was unsupervised, because he's the director and writer, he made a movie that somehow didn't fit into, like, what a movie should be in some ways, as far as the structure and maybe the way that he just assumes a lot about the audience is going to catch up. And by the end, I kind of really liked it. Like, I think it is a very unique movie. I don't know if it has any rules in the world. Like, he introduces important characters late. There's really, interesting scenes that are late, that probably go on too long, with, like, the biker scene. But, like, it's an interesting scene, and it's important to the story. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I liked it, I think. It was good. What about y'all before we go too much into depth?
What about you, Adam? Since I think I saw your rating earlier.
Yeah. Like, don't let the rating deceive you. I don't think this is a bad movie or anything like that. I did struggle with periods because it is very, very chaotic, and that's just kind of the nature of this kind of film when you're dealing with characters who are all mentally unwell. The director decides he's also going to act mentally unwell and make a film from their perspective, I guess. So I did struggle with some of the chaos, kind of like what Chris was saying, with, like, the lack of distinct rules that you would see in cinema. It comes across in one sense very novelistic. Obviously, the fact that he's a writer first and foremost, who's sort of gone into filmmaking, I think is pretty obvious. Purely, again, as we're saying, it doesn't really follow normal cinematic structures. I got a lot of, this is maybe a weird thing to say, but I got a lot of Stephen King vibes. I don't know if that's something that...
I feel that just because of, like, the way the characters are. Yeah, I agree there.
Yeah, I got a lot of Stephen King vibes, and even just like the that kind of folksy song and stuff at the start. I felt like I was going into a Stephen King adaptation, which I have no problem with. As we all know, I'm a big Stephen King fan, so I had no problem with that. I thought the cast was all exceptional. Stacy Keach is just one of these cool actors. Does anyone Stacy Keach has a connection to a film that we talked about in the podcast before? I don't know if you guys kind of looked into his filmography or know much about him. Do you know what Stacy Keach's connection to another film we talked about kind of semi recently is?
Ooh, I'd have to think.
Is it through Kevin Bacon?
No. Although I could get from Stacy Keach to Kevin Bacon in 2 jumps.
Okay.
Are we learning that Adam is one of those people that goes in and can actually, like, do those connections off the top of his head? Like,
literally in my old job in my office, we would literally play that. We would walk around and say, give me 2 actors, and I would have to try and get to them within 3 jumps. And it was always
awesome.
exactly 3 jumps. I can get
Sure.
from Jackie Chan to Miley Cyrus in 3 jumps.
That's awesome.
Easy.
Let's see. Escape
But
from
anyway.
LA he was in.
I mean, I know him, like the first time I knew Stacy Keach was Prison Break, but I don't think we talked about that in a. That was like the thing I grew up with
No.
him with
But
that.
I put you out of your misery.
Yeah, please do, because I'm trying to remember.
So Stacey Keach, apart from his film career, had a TV career playing a private detective by the name of Mike Hammer.
Oh, yes. As soon as you started talking about TV, I was like, it's Miami Blues.
Mike Hammer, which obviously is the main character from Kiss Me Deadly, which Zach, you mentioned earlier this episode because you bought it in the Criterion sale. So so that's Stacey Keach also played Mike Hammer, who was the character in Kiss Me Deadly.
No way. That's cool.
Yeah. But yeah, apart from that, the cast was all really good. I definitely didn't know about. I had heard about this being an unofficial sequel to The Exorcist, but I didn't get it at all. So I'm glad you explained that. Because I was like, okay, I guess there's kind of some supernatural kind of afterlifey stuff happening here, but I don't really see the connection other than the same writer. So at least I know that connection now. A lot of the imagery was really cool, especially the flashbacks. I love the setup to the rocket sort of getting ready to take off. I love how he shot that. It was just really kitschy and interesting. I think you can tell that he's not really a filmmaker because he has these unique ways of showing things and showing imagery that a lot of people who are kind of brought up through film might think to do. So I always find it interesting when someone kind of new comes in and shows something in a different way that other people might not have thought of. So like overall, I didn't give it the highest rating on Letterboxd because I did just struggle during periods of this movie where I didn't really know what was happening or what was going to happen. But it's certainly not a bad movie. At absolute worst, it's a really interesting experiment in film structure.
Yeah, and I think from what I remember reading, this part's a little bit long ago for me, but I feel like he originally wanted Friedkin to do it. And Friedkin was interested in doing it, but then they had issues getting like financing, and I think PepsiCo ended up financing a big part of this film, as long as they did it in a country. I can't remember what country this film is, but basically Pepsi couldn't get their product in there, so they said if you film the movie in this country, we'll give you $2 million.
Oh, interesting.
Okay. Yeah, so that was the only way he was able to get, because I think a lot of it was self-financed. Like I said, it's based off one of his novels, but it's complete. The original novel had no connection to Exorcist. This came after the fact when he did like the very minor connection to it, because pretty much that's Blatty's whole career is The Exorcist, and I think he knows that at this point. Well, he did at this point, but it's I think it's a very interesting movie. You talk a little bit about the iconography, and they use it a lot in the posters, which of course is Jesus Christ crucified on the cross, like on the moon. Yeah, and I think every poster uses that. And it's a great shot. It's very memorable, and there's a lot of memorable stuff like that in there.
Yeah, for sure. There's like little things that I really liked. Like I laughed whenever they introduced Lieutenant Spinell, and it was Joe Spinell.
Apparently he was not in like the script. I think he just wanted to play in the movie, and they said, "Sure, here you go."
That's awesome. Nice reference for him, or nice role for him.
Yeah. I mean, it does pick up, even if like it didn't have the connection. I do think it does like bring in like more thematic elements that's talked about a lot in Exorcist, specifically like what do you do when science doesn't explain something, which is something when you read about Blatty, he struggled with a lot, was how do you explain the unexplainable? How is there, and a lot of the conversations Scott Wilson and Stacy Keach's characters have is stuff he's pretty much done in all of his stuff, which is like how do you put it? Like how can we talk about God if all these bad things happen, and how can we say it's a good person, a good thing? And it's a very interesting thing, and it's something I know he was Catholic. He very much struggled with that a lot, and put it in all of his work.
Well, this is the best, to me, one of the most interesting things about The Exorcist, right, is that they spend so much of the movie trying to solve it through science, right?
Mhm.
It's almost like it's almost like by the time they get to the reveal in The Exorcist and the actual like attempted exorcism, they're not just assuming that you're gonna believe that this is real, but like they're like helping you get there by just going through like everything possible through behavioral therapy and like all this different like scientific kind of interventions, right? And then
Yeah.
that's like the last result and it works. And so it kind of like I think it's beautifully done in the way that they structure the story. That was one of my favorite things when I rewatched it recently. Other than the just really good special effects as well, which that poor girl, I don't know how old Linda Blair was when she made The Exorcist, but I have to imagine that traumatized her just a little bit.
Like 15, I think. I don't think, I think she's like 14 or 15. I don't think she's
Oh,
that
okay.
old yet. Yeah.
Well,
But
that's
I mean,
better.
yeah, I mean, which Jamie Lee Curtis was in talks to do that role before she did Halloween. So could have been Jamie Lee there.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
guess 14's better. I thought she was like 10 or something, so 14's a little better. You know a little bit more about the world at that point. But anyways, but yeah, this I think there's to Adam's point. If I it this in a weird way, I think this movie would have benefited from a screenwriter, not a writer, but a screenwriter,
Mhm.
because it's just like a very sort of philosophical, like talk heavy movie, almost in a way that like Linklater would make or something. Um, and so I think that probably could be like tightened up a little bit to make it a few stars higher. But I don't know. I like. I mean, I ended up liking the movie, so maybe it didn't affect me much.
I think because he had written the screenplays by that point, but I think what helped Exorcist, because as much as I like this movie, I think Exorcist is better. Um, is you had Blatty's worldview and his writing filtered through Friedkin, who, if you like listen to interviews where they've done together, they have very different worldviews. Like, the thing, like I remember there was one, and I always thought it was fascinating, where Blatty was kind of talking about what he intended with The Exorcist, and Friedkin's just like, I didn't get that at all. He's like, that's not the way I made the movie, and they appreciate that. He's like, I like that you saw it differently, but it's that idea that this is not filtered in any way. This is just Blatty for everything. Because even when we talk about like Exorcist 3, that's going to be filtered through a studio, and probably what caused them to not make more than 2 movies.
Okay, interesting. Who is y'all's favorite character in this?
Oh man, I'm trying to sit here and think. I'm trying to like let me look at the cast because I can remember. I really liked Ed Flanders' character, Richard Fell.
Yeah.
I
I was
liked him
so
quite.
disappointed to learn that Ned Flanders wasn't named after Ed Flanders. I was honestly like just like super bummed about that.
It's a perfect opportunity. I really like just while you're searching, I guess, or Adam, I don't know if you have your answer handy before I go, but
Mine's boring. It's Stacy Keach.
Stacey
Yeah, he
Keach
is
is
good in
good.
the movie. Yeah, Kane is good.
I really like that scene in the bar. I think the big dude, Steve Sander, his name is Stanley, that has the
Yeah.
sunglasses and he takes the sunglasses off.
Mhm.
It's like a minor role. I'm not gonna say it's the best role in the movie. Like it's minor, but uh he's just an amazing character actor. Like I think he really pulls that scene off very well. And then his sidekick in the scene is Richard Lynch.
Mhm.
It was cool to see Richard Lynch in a role like this, kind of smaller role. And then I don't know, I just thought that scene was really well done. And sort of drove home because I guess we probably don't want to spoil anything, right? But there's this big reveal of one of the characters right before then. And with this information, you kind of expect that scene to go differently. Um, and so I was just waiting for when the violence was going to start. And so because that anticipation was there from the scene before, I think it made the tension in that scene very good. I really like that part.
Yeah, and that's one thing I like about Blatty anyway as a director is I actually think really excels with tension. We'll talk about it a little bit more in Exorcist 3, but because Exorcist 3 has like my favorite jump scare in probably any movie, just because of how well it's set up. But yeah, like that's and it's hard for me not to sit there and watch and be like, there's some. He definitely learned a lot from Friedkin, I guess, working on The Exorcist, because a lot of that comes through to me, because especially where I watched some Friedkin, like while I was watching these, watch Sorcerer and stuff like that. I'm like, I think that's where he picked up a lot of habits that he did have.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. There's a character in this movie. The actor's name is William Lucking, and I keep wanting to think it's William Lustig. I thought that'd be cool if he acted in this, but he did not.
I was surprised to see Robert Loggia. I didn't recognize him when he was in.
Yeah, that was a big name to be in a minor role.
Yeah, it was a very small. Like I didn't even realize he was in it till I'm looking at the cast list now. I was like, shit, I didn't even realize Robert Loggia was in this movie.
Yeah,
it's like Tom Atkins is in it for like a minute. Like it's just randomly these character actors are just hanging out.
Yeah, you'd wonder. It's like he just called in. Like I wonder if like Blatty was like friends with these guys.
Must be.
And he was like, "Hey, yo, I'm just making this movie. It's gonna be like a pretty small role, but you want to come out to Hungary and make some movie, drink some Pepsi."
Go for it.
They're always like, "Yeah, sure, I want to go to Hungary and drink some Pepsi in a cool castle." That looks like the castle from a Cure for Wellness. Sure, that sounds fun.
Yeah, totally. Actually, it's funny you say that. I was going to bring that up just real quick before you say that. I'm also Moses Gunn, another big character actor. He's the guy that was dressed up as Superman.
Yeah.
But it was just all these character actors. But yeah, no, I got a lot of Cure for Wellness vibes from this. I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah, I was definitely thinking that too, and I was like, oh, I wonder if this is why Zach likes Cure for Wellness. But I remembered you haven't seen this film till recently as well. Is that right, Zach? You hadn't seen Mental Configuration till recently, so I thought, oh well, this makes sense why he likes Cure for Wellness so much. But no, it's the other way around, I guess.
The castle is like a great setting. Like it's kind of a weird setting for like what it is, because it's basically doing like a catch-22 sort of like plot, right?
Ooh,
you can't say you're insane if you know you're insane, that sort of thing. And are these guys faking it? And then you're doing it in like this random castle that's supposedly in Vietnam or
no,
near
it was
Vietnam.
It was supposed to be in the Pacific Northwest, which is even funnier.
Oh, okay.
It's like supposed to be in the US. It's like when they come back, it's like they send them back from Nam to be in here.
Oh, okay. So, it's been a little bit since I've
watched I find that funnier. That it's supposed to be, there's this huge fucking Bavarian castle supposedly in freaking Washington or something.
Seattle or Washington.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're only an hour's drive from Seattle, So that's funnier to me. But
yeah, this is a movie I wanted A Cure for Wellness to be. So in that way, I like this movie a lot.
Yeah, I definitely prefer this movie over Cure for Wellness. I can say that much with a certainty. I definitely prefer this movie. And I feel like it's just one that like I'll probably have to like watch again, because like obviously there's just so much shit happening, and as you mentioned earlier, Chris, he assumes a lot of the audience. He assumes a lot that the audience will be able to catch up and do various things and not have to kind of worry about introducing things or doing things a certain way. Which is cool, that's nice. You you make your film how you want to make it, but as an audience member, I feel like I'll probably have to watch this like a couple of times before I can really kind of see the full picture. But yeah, like I said, it's not a bad film or anything like that. I just kind of struggled with the chaos, but I know the chaos is the point, really. So it's kind of up to me to fix that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I do think looking back, so the main character's name is Vincent Caine, right? You're talking about Stacy Keach. He plays a guy named Vincent Caine. And the way that they introduced his character and sort of built his character as the movie goes along, I thought was well done. I don't know that there's a reveal about his character kind of midway through, or well, in the back half of the movie, anyways. I don't know that that reveal hit as hard as Blatty probably thought it did. For me, like it was certainly interesting, but I don't think it was like mind blowing. I think you presented it in a way of like this is going to be mind blowing. That was one thing that took me out of it a little bit. Like it was clever writing for sure, and it made the back half of the movie interesting to see how he was going to react with this new reveal. But I don't think it probably hit the way that Blatty thought it was going to hit for me.
Yeah,
And it's tough.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, all I was really going to note was, and it's tough because this type of reveal has been done a lot since then. Like, I don't know if there's many before this, but it's hard to talk about it without saying the specific movie. But if I say the specific movie, it gives up the whole reveal. So
be a spoiler.
Yeah, but
was it made by Scorsese?
It was.
Oh yeah. Okay.
But yeah, I think that might be part, because I mean I'm trying to think if there's examples really before this, and I'm sure there are, but I don't know if there's major examples. And I don't know if it's just like, how do we do this? And then it's just kind of been done more naturally and better as time has went on.
Yeah. Sorry, real quick. The more I think about it, I don't remember which character this was. It might have been Ed Flanders, actually. But who's the guy that couldn't find his pants early in the movie and then became sort of like?
It's Ed Flanders. It's Ed Flanders' character. Yeah.
I think he might actually be my favorite.
Yeah, he's funny. Like he's got a very dry like sense to him throughout the whole movie, and I just really liked it.
Yeah, he was excellent in this actually. I liked all the scenes he was in because I think he brought like a gravitas, like a rooting to these scenes. That like
he has a certain Peter Falkness about him.
Oh
yeah.
That's right. Yeah, I think he's my favorite now that I think about it more. All the other people kind of played their roles well, but I think his scenes were written well, and I like his character and the way he changed throughout the film.
And I've only seen it the once, but I'd be curious to see how I read his character the second time through, because the reveal, I think, from my understanding, he knows. I would assume he does.
Yeah, I think he does for sure.
Yeah. So I'd be curious to see how it reads the second time through with that information.
Right. Yeah. Just shifting from one of the inmates to then. I mean, it's okay if we talk about like his role is not the major spoiler, right? Or do you think we should not even talk about that?
I think it's probably okay.
Like his character's not the point of the movie, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's tied to it in a way, but I think moving from being an inmate to then not having like mental health issues, not being insane, and being like one of the doctors on staff, I think was handled really well, and it was a very interesting part of the film for me.
It gave him a sense of like sympathy, because I think an issue you have in a lot of these insane asylum movies or anything like that is you always have like the doctor who's like Nurse Ratched. They're cruel. They're not sympathetic to what's going on, but he really is. Like he doesn't seem to let too much bother him. Like even when his pants are missing, it's not like he's just looking for them. It's not like he's upset or he's going to like threaten anything. He doesn't have them. He just accepts it.
Right.
And it makes him very likable for that.
In that way, this is kind of like MASH. The humor is a bit like MASH.
Yeah, honestly, yeah.
Because especially the TV show, like they throw so much out there in the episodes when they're not trying to be like overly slapsticky, or because there's a lot of drama in MASH as well, like kind of mixed into the comedy. And there's a lot. I think there's characters like he would have been a character that would have fit very well into that show, I think.
I kind of want to look up if Ed Flanders was ever in MASH now, but I mean,
it seems like all these characters could have been in MASH. That's a great call out. This is like
it
MASH,
really is,
but like with like God.
I like it. All right, now since we finished up with the ninth configuration, we'll move on to a complicated mess, which is going to be The Exorcist 3, or if it's the director's cut, it's just called Legion, which is set 15 years after the original film, The Exorcist. The Exorcist 3 centers around a philosophical Lieutenant William F. Kitterman, who is investigating a baffling series of murders around Georgetown that all contain the hallmarks of the Gemini, a deceased serial killer. It eventually leads him to a catatonic patient in a psychiatric hospital who has recently started to speak, claiming he is the Gemini and detailing the murders, but bears a striking resemblance to Father Damien Crass. So this one's, I'll go over before we get started. So the complicated with this one is there are two cuts of the film. I chose for us to watch the theatrical because even though Legion is a lot closer to his intentions, I think this is a more cathartic experience overall. We'll go into the differences a little bit as we go. But one of the things he did not want is, one, he didn't want it to be called Exorcist 3 because he thinks The Exorcist 2 sucks. He's right. And then originally the film did not have an exorcism in it. The original cut of the film does not have exorcisms in it at all. The studio was not very happy about that. And we'll talk about one particular character who was done during reshoots, that once you know he's a reshoot character and that he's not in any of the scenes that are there, it becomes increasingly obvious. Though even saying all that, I do think this is a better version of the film for no other reason than Jason Miller. Jason Miller is not in the original film. He was added to this one. So we'll get into more of that.
Wait.
Yeah.
So in all the scenes where like George C. Scott is like talking to the character, Jason Miller is not, he was added in afterwards? Or did George C. Scott re-record those scenes with him?
He did re-record. The character I'm talking about is the priest who just can't. He's the reshoot character who's not in any of those actual scenes. They wanted Jason Miller. Jason Miller, it was very tough on him. According to Brad Dourif, he was going through what they call wet brain. He dealt with alcoholism real bad. So he was very hard to record with. And I think from my understanding, Blatty had initially gave up on trying to do that and just wanted Brad Dourif to do everything. But the studio liked Jason Miller. And I mean, Jason Miller's awesome in the movie, even with his limited parts. So he is not in the Legion cut at all. It's all Brad Dourif.
Interesting. Okay.
But we'll get started. So Adam, I'll let you start on this one since Chris did the other one first.
Yeah, I like it. I like Exorcist 3 or Legion. I don't know how we're going to talk about it, but I like it. I'm not big on like my Exorcist lore. I've seen The Exorcist a few times. I watched it, I want to say a couple of Octobers ago. Like, if you know me, I've talked about this on the podcast, and Zach definitely knows, I tend to try every October to watch a horror film every day. And I don't think it was last October, but like the October prior, I watched The Exorcist with Neve. She'd never seen it. She was interested. So I've seen it, but I'm not big on the lore, the background story and stuff. So I was surprised that I even learned that like George C. Scott's character is like technically a character from like the original film as well. I just wasn't too big. So I wasn't expecting it to be as connected to the original film. I assumed this was going to be more like another film about exorcisms that was going to be tangentially connected to the first film. I wasn't expecting it to be as connected as it was, especially with to even have Jason Miller, and as we just said, I wasn't expecting any of that. But I like it. Kind of like the ninth configuration, there are stretches where I don't really know what's going on. There's like a good segment of the movie where like nothing really happens. There's just stuff happening purely for mood purposes. And I don't know if that's like part of like what got lost in translation between the director's cut and the theatrical cut. But there is like a good like 20 minutes in the middle of this movie that like I don't even really know what's going on or what the point of any of it is. But then once it kind of gets back to like the normal plot where like, you know, he starts talking with you know, the Jason Miller / Brad Dourif character, and the sort of that element comes back in. I got back into it. You mentioned earlier that it has your favorite jump scare ever in it. Definitely one of the best jump scares ever. Because of how they do the setup, it's quite incredible. It's really masterful. How they do that jump scare. How the whole sort of segment is played out. Really, really brilliant. That was like probably like the best directing in the film. Not that it's badly directed or anything like that, but that was definitely the highlight. But yeah, overall, I liked it. Like I said, I'm not a big Exorcist person. I don't know a ton about the series. You definitely know a lot more about it than I do in terms of the background, how, why it was written and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not big on that, but ultimately, it was an enjoyable film. So there's that.
And just before I get to you, Chris, the one thing I always like about that jump scare is it's coming. Like he doesn't like try to startle you. He's telling you the whole time he's going to jump scare you. It's just you don't know what exactly is going to happen, and I think that's just probably one of the better ways I've seen it done.
Yeah, well, like what I loved about it was that he already jump scared us, so it's like, oh, okay, well that's not done then. But I was like, wait, but why has he gone back to this camera angle? Why is the scene not over? So it kind of puts you back on edge again because he does the build up and he does the jump scare, which is not the famous jump scare, and then he just like resets the scene. Like usually, like the scene will be over, we would just change perspective, but we don't. So it's kind of like, why has this gone back this way again? Why have we reset? So yeah, it's really, really well done.
So let's see how wrong They Shoot Pictures is. Where do they have it, Chris?
Okay, well, first of all, I think They Shoot Zombies is very favorable to this, so I want to call that out. This is the 190th best horror movie of all time.
Yeah, I knew it was. It's gotten a lot of popularity in like the last, I'd say 10 years, especially.
But here's an interesting thing, Zach, and I don't want to ruin your day, but Tremors is down at 185.
Yeah, they have their flaws and their listing, but
Yeah,
it can't be perfect, I guess.
Yeah, they need to get more of your opinions on this list to raise that up a little bit. But it shares the movies that are around The Exorcist 3 are like Spider Baby, for example, the original It, The Devils, the original medieval horror. There's some pretty heavy hitters. So this movie is well respected in horror circles. As far as They Shoot Pictures, this is 5,307, which I don't know. I mean, it's low, I guess, for as far as not being in the top 5,000, but horror is always going to be a little bit lower in these lists anyways. And so basically well, anyways, yeah, so those are the lists. Anything else before I switch to my
No, I'd rather hear your thoughts than They Shoot Pictures anyway. So go for
it. Okay. I will watch anything with George C. Scott just going full Scott. He's such a hammy actor. I don't think he gets enough. Well, maybe he does. I mean, he's pretty well respected. But when he goes ham, like he goes big. And I kind of love it. And then Brad Dourif, I knew he was a good actor, but I don't think I've really seen him as much as I thought I had. He's a really good actor. Like or maybe a really good genre actor. I don't know. But like he does great in this. Like he really sells it.
The dude can scream better than anyone I know. Like,
yeah,
like especially like you look at Child's Play too. Like, the dude can scream a lot.
Yeah, He's very like it seems real. It seems like authentic.
Well, he's really good in the Lord of the Rings movies as well.
Oh, as Wormtongue. Oh, he's so good.
That's kind of where I knew him from, and then recently I've seen him in some more 80s stuff as I've been seeing more. So I'm going to see him as a younger lad. He's pretty good. I like him a lot actually as an actor. So just on the strength of those two alone, I was entertained by this movie. I guess this is kind of tied to my. I don't want to go too far off it, but just as a quick point, seeing this, The Exorcist about less than a year ago, then seeing The Exorcist 2 this week, seeing Ninth Configuration, which I guess is in the extended universe, and then Exorcist 3. Like, I haven't seen a movie yet that really tries to be The Exorcist, and I think that's interesting. You know, like in the medieval horror. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to agree with you. Yeah, you know, it's one of those. I think they're like, yeah, we're not going to touch that. Let's just do something else.
Yeah, like I guess Exorcist 2 kind of tried, because they did that really awkward scene where they tried to force in all the history in the Middle East, and like, so awful. I hated that part. It's almost like the Middle East is written by a Lebanese guy versus the Middle East is written by a white guy. To see like the difference between 1 and 2. But yeah, the series is interesting. Like if I think of horror franchises, you know, even in medieval horror, they tried to sort of like copy the format, even though they made some changes. You know, Hellraiser always had like some common beats, obviously, right? Like obviously the Jason and the Freddy, like all these franchises have like the thing that they do, but this feels like they just take a basic idea of possession and then kind of really make these stories all quite different, which is I like. I think I like that a lot about the series. It makes me want to see the other ones. You said there's 2 prequels, right? Is it?
Yeah, Paul Schrader directed one of them. Just
Oh,
put that
wow.
out there. It does more with the Max Sydow priest
Okay.
from Exorcist. It's like his origin story.
Okay. And even the other prequel has a pretty famous director with it, right?
Which one?
There's 2 prequels, right?
Oh yeah, let me see who did the beginning. I looked it up the other day and forgot.
I've never heard of the director for the beginning anyway. Maybe it's just me. He did. He's best known
Rennie
film.
Harlan.
Yeah,
Rennie
his best.
Harlan. Yeah, no, he's
Yeah.
huge. He's a big
Is
action
he?
guy.
I'm just okay.
Yeah.
Maybe that's it because I'm looking at his best known films, which is Nightmare on Elm Street 4, Die Hard 2, and Deep Blue Sea. So maybe I don't know.
Adventure.
He
No,
did The Long
Adventures of.
Kiss Goodnight. That's a great movie.
Yeah, Adventures of Fort Fairlane. Like, come on, Rennie Harlan's awesome. Cliffhanger. These aren't like small. Okay, fine. Maybe Fort Fairlane is small, but
Adam is
like,
just sitting
I'm
there
not saying they're
confused, like
small movies. I'm just like, I don't know. He's not. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I just don't respect his auteur accreditations. I don't know.
oh, Rennie
which to
Harlan's
be
great.
fair for him, after Cutthroat Island, I think he lost a lot because Cutthroat Island is awful.
Yeah. Well, Longest Goodnight was good. Deep Blue
I like
Sea
that
was
one.
entertaining. Yeah, I guess he did. I mean, he's made a lot of like something called The Legend of Hercules. That's
He
funny.
did Cliffhanger. I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah,
I didn't
but
know
that
he
was
did that one.
before. Yeah, Rennie Harlan's great. But I would not have tagged him as an Exorcist type director.
Is the Paul Schrader one any good?
No,
Oh,
it's not. I mean, I think he because he has to base like what they did in beginning. So he does some like interesting things, and he, you know, of course, Paul Schrader's going to talk about loneliness and male masculinity and loneliness, and he does that very well. But that's like the only interesting thing about it.
enough. And David Gordon Green is making another one.
The sequel, a trilogy.
Yeah, he's doing a trilogy just like he did for Halloween.
Oh, I can't wait for like the third one, and it's like, oh, don't worry, it's not a demon. You have to worry about something else now. No, like this won't be related to The Exorcist at all. But people will shit on us for being mad about it.
The Exorcist ends.
Yeah, The Exorcist ends, and Michael Myers is the demon.
And I'll be the only one who likes it. It'll be the same thing. I'll be like, oh, I'll be here defending it. Actually, they've actually done the. I won't get us too off topic. They've done the. What do they call that? The previews, like the. What are they? When they get people to watch the movie before it comes out, I'm blanking.
Like a teaser.
Yeah,
so like they're that far into it. I just assumed it was like being.
It comes out this October. Yeah, it comes out.
Okay.
Yeah, but it was not well reviewed. So that's going to be interesting. But I'm like, people hated Halloween Kills, so I don't care. I'm going to watch it and be excited.
Oh, an Exorcist movie in October, it'll sell. That'll be a box office hit for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, at this point, unless David Gordon Green just doesn't make $100 million in the box office, he can probably do whatever he wants with horror at this point. All three of his Halloween movies made $100 million.
Yeah. Hey, but while we're on a quick tangent, can we talk about Marcus Nispel for a second? Why isn't he directing more remakes? His remakes are awesome.
Yeah, especially like TCM. TCM is great, and I think his Friday 13th is pretty good.
I loved it.
Yeah, but you were talking about favorite jump scares. One of my favorite long takes in horror is actually from Nispel when this is at the beginning, so it's not too much spoiler. When the girl shoots herself, and the camera goes through her skull and it falls back, and then it goes through the window of the van, and then it shows them park and it goes out. That is such a great shot. It's there's so much talent there and so much work that had to be done.
Yeah, exactly. Anyways, all right, cool. So Exorcist 3, Adam, Zach, what did you think?
I mean, I've debated back and forth if I prefer Exorcist 3 to the original. I really like Exorcist 3 a lot. I don't know. I think it has those slasher elements in it, which makes me that's one of those things that's gonna tickle my interest a whole lot. When you do things like that, and the scissors or whatever you call those things is such a cool murder instrument.
They're so cool.
It's so unique, and it's used so well. But I do agree with Adam that there is it's a very moody piece. So sometimes I do think Blatty does get lost in the mood of everything. He just wants to show decapitated Jesus statues and stuff like that. I think that's just more of what he likes. But I kind of like that too. I throw it on during the holidays sometimes, and it's moody and it's interesting. And yeah, and I think one of my favorite parts, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit, is when you do see Jason Miller and you have him talking to George C. Scott's character, and that transition between Miller to Dorff is so good. To me, that whole transition is what makes it better than the actual original cut, because you lose that when you don't have Jason Miller.
Yeah. That's why I was surprised that he wasn't in the original the director's cut, we'll say. That's what surprised me, because that's such a fun dynamic, having them switch and having those conversations. I thought it was just such an interesting thing to do. So I was surprised that it's not. I'm really curious to watch the director's cut now to see, because did I mishear you that there's no exorcism?
Correct. He had no interest in an exorcism in the film. He
sounds crazy to me.
Yeah, the movie ends, Legion ends, and this isn't necessarily a criticism. It's a lot more anticlimactic, but it's by design to be anticlimactic. I like the theatrical better, just because I think it's more satisfying, especially for Jason Miller's character. I think it's a little bit better. Whereas in Legion, it doesn't go down like that at all. I know Brad Dourif prefers Legion. I know he's talked about that. He thinks the studio kind of screwed over the film, but I mean, I think he's not sharing a part with somebody else. So I'm sure as an actor, that's frustrating anyway. It's you feel like you're competing with Jason Miller the whole time, which I'm sure is hard, because Jason Miller is also a really great actor, but I don't know. I think that makes it better as well.
And he has he's fighting against an established character in the lore as well. It's not even he's fighting a new character. It's always going to be tough. I kind of just want to watch the director's cut just to see what the fuck that could even be about. Just again, this is more of an open question to you, Zach, because I know you probably would have done your research on this. Just in terms of the one. Because obviously you're saying that this film has gone up in praise or, popularity in the last few years. Which cut has been getting, is it the theatrical one, or are people more interested in the director's cut?
In my experience, theatrical, I mean, a lot of people do have a lot of love for Legion, but I think really, I don't think the director's cut had surfaced by the time it started getting popularity, because I think Scream Factor or Arrow were the first ones to actually put it out. I don't know which one got it out first.
I watched the Scream Factory one. I don't know which one first, but I watched the Scream Factory one. They have both cuts on it.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Arrow one. I have the Arrow copy as both cuts as well.
Yeah, so I think it's just more like, I wasn't born in 1990, so I can't speak to that. But I really think when it first came out, I think it was written off because, especially as bad as Exorcist 2 was, and it's like, well, that was trash. And then I was like, it's not going to live up to Exorcist, so nobody really watched it. And then as time has went on, and video stores became more popular, especially in the 90s, people started watching it more, and it got popular.
Yeah, it made 44 million on 11 million, so it's not that it did nothing, but yeah, it certainly wasn't that hit that The Exorcist made like $10 billion on a, whatever it is, like one of the most crazy popular movies.
Then you look at Exorcist, there's very few horror films that get appreciation at the Academy Awards. It ended up winning 2, so that was a big deal anyway.
Right.
Of course, Blatty was one of the ones who won an Academy Award for that one, and I think they won for sound design, if I remember the other one, which is definitely deserved because Exorcist is a very squishy sounding movie, like all the way through. It's very memorable for that. But
just again, this is more of a question for the original Exorcist. So the character that George C. Scott plays was originally played by Lee J. Cobb, is that right?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah.
That's fucking awesome.
Yeah, and and I guess the idea was they were going to change actors anyway. And I've kind of gotten confused reading this, that if Brad Dourif was just supposed to play David Carras, and so there'd always be this question if he's telling the truth or if he's really is Father Damien. And I feel like from what I've read, because it kind of feels contradictory to like when you start reading into it, I feel like he wanted it to be a question the whole time if he was really possessed. And it's like, is he even talking to the right person, or is it just like his memory after all these years thinking this is Father Damien?
Interesting.
But and that's interesting in itself, and I think that can be cool. But like I said, I'm not going to say no to Jason Miller being in the movie. I think he does too good of a job in like the 7 minutes he's in the movie to cut it out.
Yeah, I think he was great in this, to be honest. That's why I was so surprised it wasn't like originally planned for him to be in it, because I do think he adds a ton to the film in his short time, because he's a really good actor.
One thing I struggled with, maybe y'all can help me unpack this a bit. So The Exorcist, it was clear what it was about, right? It was just a well-told, awesome possession movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, perfectly made for the genre, for just a well-made movie, but everything, it was so clear at every moment what it was. The only thing I struggle with Exorcist 3 is I don't know that I understand the overall point of it. Like, I enjoyed the movie, and I'll watch anything with George C. Scott and Dourif just going back and forth now that I realize how good Dourif is as an actor. But like, what was the thing we were supposed to take away from this? Like, it wasn't, like, I guess it was kind of an exorcism movie still, but it was so many other things. It was like a detective story too, right? Like, what is Exorcist 3?
For me, I think the way it thematically connects to Exorcist is Exorcist 3, well, Exorcist 1 is, like we talked about earlier, it's like how do you explain the unexplainable? And then this one is the other end of this idea of when there are no explanations and there's nothing to say to the whole time he's questioning, what's real and are the events that he's heard about true and things like that. So then you have Exorcist 3, where a lot of it's him dealing with that, like George C. Scott's character dealing with that on his own. Dealing with that sense of the unknowing, which I think is why Blatty did not like the exorcism scene and didn't want that, because he wanted that to carry through. That you just don't know. And you may never know, like, the answer to those questions.
Okay. So I'm going to editorialize here just a moment. But if Blatty was a Catholic and he was wrestling with these things, he saw the world moving towards science and moving away from religion. and maybe wrote a story about like science is important, not discrediting that, but there are things that happen that we don't understand, and like there's a role for religion in this. It's just not clear what it is. So it's like a something like that.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. Like, especially like more, after I reread The Exorcist before we did that. I didn't get a chance to rewatch the movie, sadly. But you can tell he has always been someone who, I don't know if he struggles with religion. Like, I don't think he was ever, from what I've read, he didn't seem to struggle with the idea of being religious. He struggled to understand what it all meant, and that's kind of why he wrote a lot of these the way he did, was because it was kind of, I guess, him working through that.
Okay. Okay.
And also, big scissor things are cool.
Yeah, I mean that is the coolest part.
I don't know what it was, but the scene where the daughter's about to get her head cut off and the grandma pulls her head away.
That's so good.
It's so good, right?
So good. It's just it's super tense because it looks like it's literally about to cut her fucking head off. It's so well done.
I was like, damn, that's good stuff.
Such a random scene though. Like, oh yeah, come in, random old stranger. We don't know you. Come into our home.
Sit at our table.
Yeah, sit at our table. It's a very random scene. But yeah, that part when the daughter gets pulled away at the last second is so good.
And I guess it's worth noting, Blatty has like this weird thing with hospitals, right? Like everything he does has to do with some type of hospital.
It's always like psychiatric related as well, right? So
yeah, like, well, in the first Exorcist, I mean, they kind of make you feel so bad for Regan because you see how much she's getting picked and prodded at a young age, and it's like, I don't think he cares that much for hospitals. Which is the whole thing, because Friedkin had done documentaries around different hospital stuff and really wanted to show like how that can like really traumatize someone, like if they're there, and it does work. It's very effective.
I didn't know that. That's interesting. So he was like the perfect person for The Exorcist in a way, because he was able to kind of pull out some of the horror or like the terror of being in that environment.
Yeah, because I don't think The Exorcist works unless you are there when Chris McNeil makes the decision that to pull her daughter out of the hospital type stuff. Like, they're not helping. You have to believe that or the movie fails.
Yeah. No, I agree. That was my favorite thing about that. Like, I think they got that tension right. Because you feel the struggle as a parent, right? You're like, oh, like that sucks. Like, what a terrible decision to have to make.
Right, and especially because like she's doing the right thing at that point, because that's what that's what you're always told. Get them checked. She's doing what she's told. She's like this. I think she even makes a point, if I remember in the movie, that she's not religious. Her daughter's not religious, so they're not religious people. So when they make the decision, when she makes the decision to ask for an exorcist, it's like a big thing, and that's a big ask for the audience, and it's a credit to like Friedkin and Blatty for how well they can set that up for you to be like, yep, I buy it. I buy 100%.
I don't want to go too much into story time here, but just 30 seconds. We have a friend whose kid had pretty like bad seizures from the time he was like 6 months old to the time he was like 4, like just steady seizures. It was a really, really terrible childhood. And they really lost faith in medicine, right? Because like they couldn't fix their poor kid, and like they had to just suffer with this kid. And the thing that slowed his seizures down out of anything was a change in diet. And so it's not the same as an exorcism, but like, medicine failed, right? Like it just didn't help their kid. And they went to a nutritionist who specialized in seizures. And they were like, you got to just take all the foods out of his diet and slowly introduce things, and the body's going to react better. And it did. And he's like 9 now, and he gets like 1 or 2 seizures a year, but it's very manageable compared to like
that's good that it worked out. Yeah, for sure. That's awesome.
And there's a million times where medicine's worked. I'm not like anti-medicine, right? I'm just saying, like, when you start pulling out these exceptions and like looking at the times where it fails, you realize that it's not doesn't have all the answers, right? So I think if you're a parent like that, or if you've gone through anything, if you have any stories like that, then I think the Exorcist storyline hits pretty hard. Because you're like, yeah, they're right. Like, this is an interesting angle here, right? Like, what do you do when medicine's not working or science is not working?
I think I want to go just rewatch The Exorcist.
I did look on your letterbox, by the way. It was October 2nd, 2021 when you watched it.
Ah, yeah. So it was 2 Octobers ago. I was thinking that.
Yeah. So I kind of wanted to too. I haven't seen the theatrical in a long time. I've seen the directors because I own it. It's not a whole lot different, but it has the spider walk scene, which my mom had never saw, which I thought was fascinating when I watched it with her. She's like, I don't remember this because she saw it in theaters when it came out. So she's like, I have no idea where this. She had no idea where that scene came from.
That's so good. The effects in that movie are just tremendous. Like, that's so good.
And you forget when you watch it, you're like, man, the exorcism part only takes up like 10 minutes of the movie. It's not that long. Like, you remember so much from it. So you're like, that's like half the movie, right? And then you're like, oh, the movie's over.
So okay. It's like it's the Jason Takes Manhattan of exorcism movies.
Yeah. Which it's probably a whole different discussion, but there's probably that whole talk about how that's how a lot of exorcism movies kind of screw up, is they're like, how fast can we get to the exorcism?
Yeah, they focus too much on that aspect and not the, like, what makes it so, as you were just talking about, what makes the exorcism so just real and sort of scary is all the build up to it. So like all the sort of real things, like sickness and trauma and not knowing what's happening to your child, etc., etc. That's the scary part, and the exorcism is the kind of release of all of that tension, as opposed to just jumping straight into the demon talky shit. And it's like, I don't give a shit about this child. Why would I care if they're possessed by the fucking devil?
That's a great point. It's like cathartic as opposed to being the whole point, right?
Yeah, exactly. They make it the whole point where like you're suddenly having exorcisms on characters that you don't give a shit about. There's no lead up to it.
That being said, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, and and how much can you do with an exorcism scene? Like, you look at like The Exorcist, they do everything an exorcist movie does. Throw some holy water, say some Latin. Kid floats in the air. I mean, you get all that in every exorcism movie. You don't need to.
We're all about the back cracks these days. It's all about contortion.
Yeah,
that's true. That's true. I don't know if y'all have both seen The Exorcism of Emily Rose.
I love that movie.
Yeah,
it's so good.
That's good movie.
Really, really well done for another.
Scott Derrickson did that one, right?
He did, yeah. The guy did Doctor Strange.
No wonder. Okay.
Yeah, it's very good. I mean,
well, that does it right. It makes you care about the character, because obviously there's that whole legal aspect of it's really good as well. So, that is one of the sort of modern exorcism films that does actually get that aspect of it right.
And every time he tries to explain, like one of the ones that sticks out in my head is like when you get to like, the stigmata on her hands. She's like, she could have went out to the local fence and stabbed her hands because she was mentally ill.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah. I mean, you don't have the answer by the end of the movie, but you also feel like it's so fair by the end when they said, yeah, he's guilty, but we would prefer he could be let go.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Spoiler tag on the exorcism movie.
Well, I figured that this part was getting cut, so I figured I was good.
Well, look, I suppose we'll talk about what we're gonna watch kind of next time. This will probably be another gap of a couple of weeks for the next episode, but there'll be obviously stuff to fill in between. I had been trying to figure out what to pick. I knew I was probably going to end up picking more horror movies because we're slowly and surely becoming a horror podcast, which
my plan is working.
We're all horror fans, so that kind of, it was going to happen eventually. So I wanted to pick some horror movies. I don't think Chris has seen either of these. I knew that Zach had seen one of them. I didn't anticipate that he had seen both of them. So Zach has seen these before. It's going to be a free week for him. I don't think, Chris, you've seen either of them. I've seen both of them already, but it's been a few years since I've watched them, so I've been really wanting to rewatch them and talk about them. So there's two films, and Chris, I absolutely implore you, if you haven't seen these, do not look up a single thing about them. I'm going to tell you what they're called and where you can watch them. I implore you to not look up anything. Go in as blind as humanly possible.
That's cool. I don't do it anyway, so that's an easy ask for me.
Cool, perfect. Well, the first one we're gonna talk about when we come back is a British film by a director called Ben Wheatley. I don't know if you're familiar with him or his name, but pretty cool director. He's made some good films. He made one in 2011 called Kill List. So that's one of the ones we're going to watch. It's streaming on AMC Plus. It's streaming in standard definition on Tubi. So not in HD for some bizarre reason. It's in standard definition on Tubi, or you can just like pick it up to rent on iTunes or Amazon, wherever you normally get your stuff from. The other film then we're going to watch is by a guy called Adam Wingard, that you might be familiar with. He's kind of an interesting guy because he started off making sort of cool horror movies and then sold out massively and started making blockbusters that weren't very well received. Although I do like his Godzilla versus King Kong movie. But he started very much as a horror film sort of wonder kid. You know, he was just making a lot of cool horror films and then he sold out. But that's fine. That happens. But the one we're going to watch from him is from 2013 and it's called You're Next. So that's what we're going to watch next time. So Kill List and You're Next.
Nice. That's a nice 1-2 punch. Didn't Ben Wheatley direct the Rebecca remake?
He did.
He did. Yeah. That's
okay. And I want to know if this episode comes out the weekend, and it might, if it comes out the weekend of the 5th, that'll be perfect because he's doing the Meg 2, and that's when it releases.
I just pulled up his filmography. Why the fuck is he making the Meg 2?
Dude, that movie looks awesome though. Like it looks so much better than first.
The trailer started that I saw the trailer before Mission Impossible. And I didn't even really know what it was. And then I saw Jason Statham and I was like, wait a minute, is this a sequel to that film about the big shark? Yes, it is, apparently. It looks fucking crazy. So
yeah, I'm glad they got someone like Wheatley. So because I think it's gonna be good.
Yeah, I'm kind of now that I know that he's making it, I'm kind of intrigued.
We all know that Hitchcock wanted to make a mega shark movie, so it makes sense that he would go from Rebecca to
100%. Yeah, that's like technology was not ready for Hitchcock wanting to make a film about a giant prehistoric shark, unfortunately. But if you are wanting to do if you wanted to sort of spice up your watching experience, if you wanted to kind of watch another Ben Wheatley film to kind of get to know a bit more about his sort of tastes and style, he made another really good film in 2013 called A Field in England.
That's a crazy movie.
Crazy movie. It's streaming in way more places. It's on Hulu. It's on Shudder. It's on a bunch of other things I've never even heard of, all streaming in HD. So if you did want to watch it, it's pretty short. It's like 90 minutes. Really crazy film, A Field in England. So if you wanted to kind of get a bit more of a taste of him, you don't have to. We're not going to talk about it as part of the next discussion, Chris. But if you wanted to watch A Field in England, I would recommend it. It's a really wild film.
I like the description. So
awesome. Look, we'll wrap up there anyway. Like I said, next few episodes is probably going to be some interviews coming up. Maybe Barbieheimer. We might have a Barbieheimer episode. We have to check. Me and Zach got to try and coordinate our schedules. If we can coordinate our schedules, then we're going to try and get an episode up about Barbie and Oppenheimer, where we'll talk about those. And then we'll come back and we'll talk about some horror movies.
Awesome. Thanks all. This is a fun one.